released by developer Cyclone Studios and publisher the 3DO Company in 1997, Uprising, Join or Die, in many ways exemplifies what is so great about 90s gaming. From its fast-paced white-knuckle action to its innovative blending of real-time strategy elements, this is a forward-looking game that's surprisingly still so much fun to play today. I played this game a lot when I was a kid, and I beat it quite recently, maybe only 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm playing it again now. I have that sickness. You know, there are games I just play often. This is turning into one of them. And I'm playing it this time with 2 projects in view. One of them is a series on games and how they depict guerrilla warfare, how the way that they depict guerrilla warfare or revolts in general lines up with revolt theory, or revolutionary theory or guerrilla warfare theory, and so on and so on. As a basis, I'll be using the book Total Resistance. And the other project I have in mind is to make a list. It'll be kind of a niche category, but I'm thinking perhaps something like a tier list of real-time strategy action game hybrids, because there were a lot in the 90s and early 2000s, and I love that specific blend of genres. As a tier list, it might be a little bit niche or weird, but I would like to do it. If you would like to see it, please let me know. I mean, if the whole world tells me they would not like to see it, I'm still gonna do it. I might just be trying to be polite and asking your opinion. I'm interested in your opinion, but your opinion will not affect the future, the outcome. In the grand scheme, if you have specific suggestions or constructive criticism on the project. Look, you may or may not know this, but Battlezone is considered one of the best games ever made. I tend to agree with that. One of the best games ever made. It is the true pioneer of action and real-time strategy melding. Perhaps one of the greatest examples of this specific blend that's ever been made. For being a very early attempt at this genre blend, specifically in 3D, it's remarkable how perfect it got it. It's surprising how balanced it is, how elegant it is, and how much fun it is. There were, of course, a few earlier examples of this, the most notable being, of course, Herzog's Zwei, that came out for the Sega Genesis and other computer systems at the time. And then, well, we got Uprising. I don't think it takes any specific kind of person to get Uprising, Join, or Die, or in other words, to understand its appeal. The concept is great, and if you can put yourself in the mindset of being in the 90s, the graphics are great too. It really is a good looking game, and all the chaos and fighting that happens all around really lends it an illusion of total combined arms warfare. So as you make your way through Uprising, you will traverse a series of solar systems with planets that you must conquer. There is some freedom for you to choose which planets to go to first. You can send spies or probes to determine the enemy's tech level, to see if maybe you should upgrade anything beforehand, and that is something that you can also do in this screen. Then once you select a mission by selecting a planet, you will be sent planet side to begin. And the objectives, most of the time, are to build a citadel on every claim site on the map. The citadel is more or less the focal point of your base. It has a very heavy turret to defend itself, and it also is what allows you access to the specific claim sites that you can build your base on. Now, on these claim sites, you can send for other buildings. And now, here, the buildings are not built on the claim site. Instead, they are dropped via dropship, fully intact. And once they drop, they are active immediately. There is practically no wait time. And that's one thing that you'll appreciate very quickly about this game, is that it seems everything is designed to get you into the action as quickly as possible. And that extends out to unit deployment. Every unit, with the exception of bombers, are deployed by simply pointing in a direction and hitting the function key that corresponds to them. They will then warp in and immediately start fighting. And the great thing is, when the fighting is over, you can sell them back and you can get the amount of resources back minus the damage the unit took. And it is conducive to the hit and run school of guerrilla warfare, even though it's in a completely unrealistic and science fiction way. And it's more tactically deep than its simplicity and ease of use might let on. There's a little bit of rock, paper, scissors going on, but what I like about it is that there aren't too many hard counters. I suppose there are some hard counters, but it's all very fuzzy. The first brilliant thing it does is it makes the weakest unit best against buildings. So most of the time it is worth it to deploy infantry against buildings. But infantry are slow, they have a hard time defending themselves, they're very vulnerable. And so that's where tanks come in, or aerial assault vehicles come in. So you have airplanes and tanks that are very capable of covering infantry, but of course the aircraft are weak against surface-to-air missiles, so you gotta be careful there aren't any of those around. And the tanks have to deal with many other ground-based adversaries, and the enemy tends to deploy a lot of tanks. So there is a bit of a balancing act between who you deploy and when. It's often worth it, for example, to deploy a couple of tanks before you send in infantry to soften up the resistance and hopefully establish a foothold from which they can then cover the infantry. I found myself in one mission deciding to forego tanks for a while and focus on air superiority. So I built more aerial assault vehicle hangars so that I could deploy more at a time. I was able to overwhelm the enemy airspace, and that gave plenty of good cover for my other troops to do the work. I tasked myself with providing the ground cover for the infantry. So between the air superiority that I gained and using myself as a ground-based support for the infantry, we were able to establish a foothold, gain another claim from which we were then able to build tanks. And now, at that point, we had a fully balanced fighting force. I don't suppose there's much else to say. This is a game in which the strategic options are there through the base building, because through the base building you choose your approach with your units, and the tactical part is there because although it's very fast and easy to deploy many units at a time, the order that you deploy them in and what role you give them, how close you deploy them to their target and so on, and how quick you are to warp them out of danger to get those resources back does play a role. So it really is one of those things where your reflexes and your adrenaline is mixed in perfectly with the strategic and tactical part. Now, both the strategic and tactical part are very simplistic, it's true, but there's just enough there to chew on while you're zipping around in your super command tank. It just manages to stay really interesting. You can absolutely go on GOG or Steam, get it right now, and have an amazing time. I cannot recommend it enough. I'm happy to make another video. It's been a while. If you liked it, then please like it. Consider subscribing. We do gaming stuff here. You know how it goes. See you later.